So, Caroline, if I understand this right, you spent your entire career at Pershing, which we do know is a BNY Mellon company, and now you're with BNY Mellon as the CMO. So you got that appointment just last year. So what I find very interesting is that most recently at Pershing, you were Chief Strategy Officer, and now you're Chief Marketing Officer for the Investment Services division. Tell us about your role, what your challenges are as CMO, but what makes your challenges and what you can bring to this new job with your experience of having been a Chief Strategy Officer? What's the same, what's different?
So maybe I'll just back up a little bit, and you might be asking, how did she end up in Chief Strategy and then to marketing? But I actually started in the marketing function at Pershing. I hate to say how long ago, but it would be 25 years ago this year. I joined Pershing 2 weeks after I finished my MBA. I entered a very loosely defined training program there where I was supposed to work for two different managing directors for 6 months each on special projects. And at the end of that year was supposed to find a position in the organization. They were still really testing the waters on this MBA training program. Well, I positioned myself to start a marketing function as an individual contributor because they didn't have that in the organization. It was really sales driven. So the basics were what I began with, helping to write letters to prospective clients, working on 3 regional client conferences that they hosted each year and things like that, presentations to prospective clients, and then over time built the marketing function, literally me plus 1, me plus 2, and so on, and then took on corporate communications, so internal communications and public relations, and then took on the business planning function, all the while keeping what I had previously, then took on the chief of staff function for our CEO and COO, and then ran product management and development for about 4 years, and then was asked to acquiesce the product management organization and take on the chief strategy officer function and also innovation for the organization. And then just this past January, was asked by the former CEO of Pershing, who is now one of the vice chairs within the parent organization, BNY Mellon, to take on the chief marketing officer role for investment services, which is a large part of the enterprise organization. He oversees really all the institutional businesses within BNY Mellon. Pershing is one of those businesses, so I still have the privilege of overseeing the Pershing team and the things that I had done there, but now I'm also overseeing a much broader marketing and communications function in the enterprise. It was interesting because I shared this earlier that Jack Cullinane, I'll give him a plug from Serious Decisions, had seen that I was speaking at this conference, I guess has never attended before, and he sent me this research brief, and it's entitled Strategic Planning, the Role of the CMO. And the little highlight on the side says, CMOs have an obligation to lead cross-functional change that will enable organizational success. The strategic planning process is an opportunity for CMOs to increase marketing's business contribution. CMOs must come to strategic planning meetings with fact-based insights to drive critical discussions and outcomes. So sometimes people think it's sort of an odd or circuitous path that led me to leading strategy, but for me it was a natural progression, and now in this chief marketing officer function, trying to influence strategy at the parent company level is coming pretty naturally. And it's interesting because some of the projects that I was asked to get involved with or initiatives this year really were because I had the background that I had. So for example, the parent organization was being asked by its board of directors to work on a strategic framework for the board, and they followed A.G., the legendary CEO from Procter & Gamble, A.G. Lafley, and Roger Martin wrote a book called Playing to Win, and we had to essentially take all of the plans for the organization and place them into the Playing to Win framework, which was not a natural for even the most senior people in the company. They'd never really done strategic planning that way. So that was one of the things that I had helped with earlier in the process. So anyway, I don't know if you want me to go into much more detail about it.
I would like to just interject that. I think it's perfectly natural because to have a progression like that, my own experience is everyone who's ever worked in marketing has always felt that they should be in charge anyway. So, and
it's true.
And it continues today.
It's true.
Can you talk a little bit about what your mandate is as CMO for BNY Mellon, and maybe give us an idea of what you're looking to accomplish in 2016? I know that there are a lot of people in this room who would love to be a partner with you, and if they had an idea of what's on your docket, maybe they can start thinking about how to help you, whether it's from a strategic point, from an innovative point, whether it's product development, any of it?
So to be frank with everyone, really right now, it's a bit of a tale of two cities because the Pershing Marketing Communications Organization is pretty evolved. We're doing some really fun and interesting things, and Rebecca Bales, my colleague, is on one of the following panels, and she's going to talk to you a little bit about what we're doing in the area of content. But on the BNY Mellon side, what I'm finding is a lot of the things that need to be put into place are more infrastructure building blocks. For example, emergency communications processes that would be consistent across all the businesses and things like that, where things that we already had in place in one part of the company were not necessarily yet inculcated as a best practice into another part of the organization. So I'm trying to play catch up with the rest of the organization. And one of the ways that I was able to start doing that, which might be a good takeaway for all of you if you're getting into a larger platform role, is that I started these working groups earlier this year, soon after I took the role, because I saw that not all the people that were supporting the groups that I was responsible for actually were part of the organization that I was responsible for, if you get what I'm saying. Like the marketing and communications functions were distributed. Some reported into the businesses, some were part of the corporate marketing team, some reported into my organization that I inherited. But in the end, I had to get everybody to coalesce around a common purpose, even if they weren't all reporting up to me. And one of the ways to do that was starting these working groups. So we did 10 working groups across pretty much every functional topic you can imagine: internal communications, client advisory boards, metrics and reporting, public relations, thought leadership, and so on. And we're able to get sort of a volunteer army, I called it the Coalition of the Willing, to come together to try to find low-hanging fruit of best practices that could easily be developed and sort of shared across the broader organization. And we were able to make some great progress in that way. And we still are making progress, but that was one of the ways that we did so.
Thinking about the work groups in your organization, talk a little bit about talent. So you've already mentioned that the panels this afternoon are going to be covering content. Our panels yesterday talked digital, a lot on mobile. So we know that the workforce is developing in a sense of looking for more skills in things like content development, content management, digital curation, digital skills, and being able to have a conversation about mobile. What do you look for when you're looking to develop a marketing team?
So let me start off by saying I think that character trumps everything. So one of the things, and Rebecca's familiar with this, that we've developed as a leadership team at Pershing are these guiding principles. And we use that as a lens by which we select others to join our group. So for example, the first one is the quality of the individual is paramount, which basically means what I just said, that if you need to find somebody who is a decent human being and then hope that they have all the right skills that you need to bring to the table to get the job done successfully. But it's not that I would be willing to trade off somebody who has excellent technical skills in exchange for them not being a really great person to work side by side with. Others include things like thinking strategically, and we were going back and forth over the weekend. I would add to that experientially, and maybe we can come back to that at the end about the things from a technical standpoint that I think people really need to have in their suite of accomplishments or capabilities. Things like never resting on the status quo, being a strong team player, valuing creativity and innovation, honoring the strengths of each of your teammates. What I mean by that last point, I'm not going to illustrate every one of them for the time that we have here, but everybody brings value to an initiative. So I never really wanted to have our group feel that one part of the marketing organization was calling all the shots and that others were just taking orders. So that really is what that last point means. And the experiential part of what I added is that I do think that, and I'm seeing that in a number of the initiatives that I'm trying to either sponsor or be involved with in the organization, both at Pershing as well as in the parent company level, is that it's so important to think about how the end user or the client, internal, external, is going to actually consume what it is that you're working on, and have that point in mind as you're working on it. So whether it's an event that you're hosting and you want to get into the minds of the experience that that individual is going to have when they come to your event, or whether it's how you're producing your content and when you post it online, how easy is it to draw down, how easy is it to get to the salient points, those kinds of things. And then the last point I would say, which is a more technical skill, is I don't think that we have enough digital natives. I think that we are really behind, even in financial services, and some of it is because there are so many regulatory constraints around what we can do from a social media standpoint and things like that. We're not the most progressive industry yet, and I'm not sure between us and healthcare, we're sort of neck and neck with having some considerable restraints on us. But I think it's important for all of us to think more digitally, and I don't think it comes naturally to all of us. I mean, not everyone in this room is what's known as a digital native, somebody who grew up with technology. Many of us were acquiring it as we got a little older, but I think it's important for us to have more people that think about the digital experience.
So staying with that for a second, I'm curious, do you look then to only outsource or look for external qualifications, or is there an opportunity for you to train internally and convert some of your talented folks already and get them proficient in the digital language?
You know, I think we've had great success, frankly, with getting our team members up the learning curve. I know not everybody will be happy to hear this, but we don't outsource that much on the Pershing level, at least. We tend to do a lot of the work ourselves among the team. So it's been through either continuing education or having some people that are training others in how to do things, and back to the being a good team player concept, that it's important to be able to share the knowledge that you have, whether it's going to an industry event and coming back and creating a summary of what you've learned, or hosting a lunch and learn with your colleagues and telling everyone to bring a sandwich and we'll talk about all the great things I just learned at a particular conference that I attended. So I think that that's all lending to the overall success of the effort.
Yes, and that's an excellent point, because I know for a fact that after many FCS events, that Rebecca Bales is very good about writing up some notes and capturing some great takeaways. Plug.
Yep.
I've got one more question for Caroline, and then we're going to open it up for just a couple of questions before we get into our panel, so think about your questions. We started off talking about your family. Again, I'm delighted that they're up here. I hope they're having a great time. Obviously, dealing with raising kids, having a fantastically successful career, and obviously being very loyal for one corporation. How do you prioritize? Give us some little personal insight.
So I look at, life is a marathon. It's not really a race. You may have these little spurts here and there that you have to deal with, but I don't think that you're ever at a place of perfect balance. I think it's almost impossible. So I think that if you're trying to chase that dream, it may be a fool's errand. I think that things ebb and flow in the course of your life. I have 3 children. I've been married for 21 years, and we have a 17-year-old son, a 14-year-old daughter, and an 11-year-old daughter, and a dog named Flynn, who didn't come. He was not as fortunate as Winchester to join us on this trip. Plug for my friend Winchester. There you go. My kids are now adopting Winchester for the weekend because I think they miss our dog Flynn. But I think it is about giving it your all at whatever point or part of your life really needs it at that time. Whether it's, sometimes you have a personal health crisis, which I've had a few in the last 10 years. You have work crises that you need to deal with. And sometimes it's that you need to go to an event at your children's school, and I happen to live in a community where I think they presume there's always one parent at home. Most of the activities are not scheduled in the evening and things like that when there's a show or whatnot. So I think it's about just giving it your all when you're in the moment and which aspect of your life is really in need. I also think I compartmentalize pretty well. I can turn things on and off. I can be on a conference call up until my driveway and walk in the house and get into homework duty or whatever else calls on the family front. And then the last thing I would say is always have something to look forward to. This has been a tool that I've used a lot in the course of a stressful career, which is if you're having a bad day, take 5 minutes and plan something that's going to make you happy. It may be a vacation, but it may just be that you want to go out to dinner with a friend that you always have a good time with, or it may be that you want to go, if you're like me, and get your nails done or something, or if you're a guy, you may just want to earmark that you're going to do your favorite sporting event. That could be for a female as well, but I'm just trying to give you a sense that it doesn't always have to be extraordinary. It's just something that makes you happy. And I find that it helps you get through that moment that's really tense and tiring if you know that you've just done something that's going to put you in good spirits.
And that probably works when you're dealing with the stress of helping out on homework as well.
Yes. Yeah.
We have time for a couple of questions. We're going to start with Mr. Claflin in the back row.
Yeah, Caroline, I'm having a bad day. I'd like to have lunch on Tuesday. I'll eat that.
Anyone who doesn't currently work for Pershing or BNY Mellon with the question is not trying to advance her career. Rebecca?
Caroline, I thought maybe you could talk a little bit about the way that the culture of our firm shows up in times of crisis. So I think back to Hurricane Sandy and other incidents when it wasn't just Pershing that was in crisis, it was the whole industry. And if you could maybe share a story about how Pershing shows up, not just from a backup resiliency perspective, but how we really show up in people's lives.
So let me try to turn that a little bit around so that it's something that all of you can really think about in your own organizations. We had worked on a big messaging project for Pershing. We were trying to get to the heart of what the sort of the most important things were for us to articulate to the market. And one of them is strength and stability. But I think in the past we would have leaned on, oh, we've been in business for 75 years. We're part of a parent organization that's been in business for 225 years. Isn't that a reason to believe that we're a safe and reliable organization? But I think where Rebecca is going with this is that we really were the kind of firm that during Hurricane Sandy enabled some of our clients to actually be in business the day following the crisis, the natural disaster, when their own disaster recovery facilities failed them. So we were able to put them up in a Pershing facility and give them a home really for many months thereafter until their original site was back up and running. So that's not just a message about how Pershing culturally has helped our clients in a time of need. I think it's a lesson for all of you to think about what is it about your organizations that make it special and that you would want the market to know about and your clients and your prospective clients, and then how do you prove it? And prove it in ways that aren't just fact-based, but that actually strike an emotional chord with whoever it is that you're trying to engage.
Okay. Our time, is it a real quick one?
Yeah.
Okay.
At the beginning of the year, what do you see as the biggest challenges and maybe biggest opportunities for the year?
So I would still say that my challenge is having this very disparate organization that I'm trying to get moving in a single direction. But I think that in that is also a tremendous opportunity, because I don't think that all of these people, in some instances, I knew that they hadn't even met before, let alone actually worked together before. And so the power of what you can do if you can bring all of these teams together and actually get them moving in a common direction, I think is extraordinary. And I'm hoping that a year from now we'll have some more of those best practices actually instituted across the enterprise, and we'll feel like things are flowing in a more natural and productive way.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you. Mr. Jago has warned me that the time is out. Caroline, thank you very much for
No,
starting
thank you
off
all.
our kickoff our forum.
Thank you.